So good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to today's virtual design review panel meeting. This is the second item on the agenda. I'm Victoria Cox, urban designer for the City of Hamilton and host of this meeting, but panel member David Coluzio will be the chair. In addition to the panel members, we have the applicant team, city staff, members of the public, and the media observing this meeting. Members of the public are welcome to observe only, please. So this session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the DRP webpage. Just a reminder to please keep your microphones muted if you're not speaking. Thank you, David. Please begin the meeting.
Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Victoria, can you please confirm that the session is being recorded?
It is, yes.
And are there any changes to the agenda today?
No.
And I guess if there are any panel members that have any conflict of interest in regards to this proposal, if they could make some noise about that. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that there is no conflict. Okay, the second item on the agenda today is a mixed-use development located at 101 Hunter Street East. The lead planner on the file is Daniel Barnett. Good afternoon, Daniel. We're ready for your presentation. Please keep the presentation under 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
I think so.
Okay. All right, so the proposal is for development at 101 Hunter Street. The proposal is for a 27-story mixed-use commercial and residential building with at-grade retail and commercial and residential tower above containing 297 multiple dwelling units. A total of 122 parking spaces are proposed and 149 bicycle parking spaces are also proposed. So the subject property is located at the northeast corner of Hunter Street East and Catherine Street South. To the north of it is a multiple dwelling. To the west is a semi-detached low-rise building. To the south is the tracks for the associated with the Hunter Street GO station, and to the west is surface parking. This is a view of the subject property seen from the intersection of Hunter Street East and Catherine Street South, looking northeast. This is a view of the existing building on the subject property seen from Hunter Street East, looking north. This is also a view of the subject property seen from Catherine Street South, looking east. This is a view of the subject property as seen from Hunter Street, looking north. This is a view of the existing low-rise buildings to the east of the subject property, seen from Hunter Street, looking northeast. This is a view of the elevated railway tracks associated with the Hunter Street GO station, seen from the intersection of Hunter Street and Catherine Street, looking south. This is a view of the lands located to the west of the subject property, as seen from Catherine Street, looking southeast. Looking west. This is the site plan that was provided by the applicant for the proposed development. This is an image of the ground floor plan that was provided by the applicant. This is an image of the south elevation plan for the proposed development. This is an elevation plan for of the west elevation. So this is the elevation along Catherine Street. This is the elevation of the east elevation for the proposed development, and image of the north elevation plan for the proposed development. This is a rendering of the proposed development that was provided by the applicant, and another rendering of the proposed development. The subject property is located is identified on Schedule E of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan as being in the downtown urban growth center. The subject property is designated on Schedule E1 of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan as being downtown mixed use. In terms of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan, the major policy themes are that the downtown urban growth center shall function as the preeminent node for Hamilton due to its scale, density, and range of use and function. Shall generally have a higher density within the city of Hamilton with a minimum overall density of 250 persons and jobs per hectare. Shall be designed with a strong pedestrian focus to create a comfortable and animated pedestrian environment, and reduced parking requirements shall be considered to encourage a broad range of uses and density and to support transit. Residential and commercial uses are permitted for lands designated downtown mixed use. Permitted density and height shall be set out in the secondary plan. Within the area designated downtown mixed use, a higher density form of housing shall be encouraged, and again, reduced parking requirements shall be considered in recognition of the high level of transit service in the areas designated downtown mixed use. In terms of urban design policies, residential intensification developments shall be evaluated based on a compatible integration with the development with the surrounding area in terms of use, scale, and character. Urban design shall foster a sense of community pride and identity, respecting the existing character, development patterns, built form, and landscape. Recognize and protecting the cultural history of the city and its communities, conserving and respecting the existing built heritage features of the city and its communities. Quality spaces, physically and visually connecting the public private realms by organizing spaces in a logical manner through the design, placement, and construction of new buildings, streets, structures, and landscapes, recognizing that every new building or structure is part of a greater whole that contributes to the overall appearance and visual cohesiveness of the urban fabric, using materials that are consistent and compatible with the surrounding context in the design of the new buildings. New development and redevelopment should enhance the character of the existing environment, by contemplating the existing massing patterns, rhyme, character, color, and surrounding context. New development shall be designed to minimize impact on neighboring buildings and public spaces by creating transition and scale to neighboring buildings, ensuring adequate privacy and sunlight to neighboring properties, minimizing the impact of shadowing and wind conditions. A new development shall be massed to respect the existing and planned street proportions. Built forms shall create a comfortable pedestrian environment, locating the principal facades and primary building entrances parallel to and as close to the street as possible, and using design techniques such as building step backs to minimize sunlight to pedestrian areas. The property is designated in the Downtown Hamilton Secondary Plan as downtown mixed use and is identified as being a mid-rise building on the maximum building height schedule of the Downtown Secondary Plan. The building height of mid-rise shall be a height of 12 stories. Mid-rise buildings shall create an effective transition between low-rise built neighborhoods and existing or future tall buildings through the use of appropriate setbacks and stepbacks. Downtown Hamilton Secondary Plan design policies call for a cohesive to conserve and enhance the built heritage resources and cultural heritage landscapes of the downtown. Development should be massed to frame the street in a way that respects and supports the adjacent street proportions. Development shall be compatible with the existing context of the surrounding neighborhood. Development shall provide a built form transition in scale through the variety of design methods, including angular plane, location orientation of buildings, and the use of setbacks and stepbacks of building mass. Subject property is zone D1 in the downtown in the City of Hamilton zoning bylaw 05200. And the maximum height identified on Figure 1, the maximum building height Schedule F, is 44 meters. This is a mapping of the base building facade height, which identifies Catherine Street as having a base build facade height of 7.5 meters and Hunter Street as having a building base facade height of 16 meters. The property, as mentioned, is zone D1, at maximum height of 44 meters. Based on the unit breakdown of 158 units that are less than 50 square meters in size and 139 units that are greater than 50 square meters in size. A total of 125 parking spaces are required in the zoning bylaw. Based on the total number of units being proposed, 148 long-term bicycle parking spaces are required, as well as 5 short-term bicycle parking spaces are required. And then between 5 to 10 short-term bicycle parking spaces are required for the commercial unit, depending on what the ultimate use of these units will be. As I mentioned, the building base facade height of 16 meters is on Hunter Street and 7.5 meters on Catherine Street, and a 3-meter step back at those building bay facade heights are required in the zoning bylaw. A setback of 3 meters is required for the portions of the building above 22 meters from the easterly and northerly lot lines, and a minimum setback of 12.5 meters from the easterly lot line and 9.5 meters from the alleyway along the northerly lot line is required above 44 meters in height. In terms of specific areas of discussion, does the proposed will represent compatible integration with the surrounding area in terms of use, scale, form, and character? Does the proposal conserve and respect the existing built heritage features of the area? And does the proposal match to respect the existing and planned street proportions? That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Daniel. I guess we're ready for the applicant to present their proposal. And if you could please keep your presentation under 10 minutes, I'll advise you when you're getting close. I'm not hearing anybody.
We go. Sorry about that. Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Patton. I'm a planner at GSP Group. I'm here with a few members of the project team. We have Radek Kozlowski, the project architect, Paul Kemper, Michael Krasik, and William Hugh with Colterra Development. We also have Chris Borgel and Nicholas Barrett from GBCA Architects, who prepared the Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment related to the existing building, as shown in Daniel's photos, who are available to respond to the clarification questions of the panel. So the site 101 Hunter Street East is located within the boundaries of downtown Hamilton at the northeast corner of Hunter Street East and Catherine Street South, and also within the boundaries of the Corktown neighborhood. As Daniel covered most of the locational contexts, this area, as you can see in the image, has large commercial surface parking lots to the west, north, and northeast, making this area and corridor along Hunter Street ripe for redevelopment. This proposal represents transit-oriented development through the intensification of a site adjacent to higher order transit, which provides frequent local and regional transit services. The site is well served by existing pedestrian and cyclist infrastructure, including public sidewalks and physically separated cycle tracks on Hunter Street, which connect directly to the newly opened Keddy Access Trail to the east. Beyond the design and intensification of the site, the proposed development will include a number of transit demand management initiatives, including the provision of long-term secure bike parking and short-term bike parking, the unbundling of parking spaces, as well as wayfinding, trip planning, and other transit planning initiatives. This slide further illustrates the site's context in terms of the city's existing and planned cycling infrastructure. The developer is encouraged by the city's investment in the cycling infrastructure in the downtown and surrounding area, including those two items that I mentioned, Hunter Street, the physical separation of those cycle tracks, and the Keddy Access Trail. And through this development, the project team hopes to bring more residents to these important transportation corridors. So the design of the site has evolved over the last 2 years since the initial concept, which was only for a portion of the site and excluded the corner parcel. A formal consultation, or FC, submission was submitted in 2019 for the consolidated parcel, which included the entire corner site. A high-rise building was introduced on this concept, but that design posed challenges related to functionality and efficiency. I will give it over to Radek now.
Hello. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Radek Kozlowski. I'm the architect of record for this project. From the ground perspective, the most distinctive element of the design is the podium that includes a variety of architectural features. The 3 to 6 meter wide sidewalks are designed with many landscape elements such as benches, planters, and different texture pavements to encourage pedestrian traffic and enrich their outdoor enjoyment. This is accentuated by high-ceiling commercial units with fully glazed facades along Catherine and Hunter Streets. The entrance to the residential tower is given a special prominence by a large lobby, a light canopy, and a sculptural element above it to give a recognizable feature to the complex. The ground floor level light effect treatment is contrasted with a 3-story podium structure above that is screened with solid concrete, interrupted by curtain wall shadow boxes that animate the elevations and complement the ground floor with their vertical proportions. This structure creates an interesting separation between the pedestrian level and the tower that is set back from the podium. Its design is sensitive to the mid-rise neighbors, particularly those to the east. The tower follows the recommended balance between the glass and opaque facade portions. This balance, plus the use of contrasting colors, achieve a look of simplicity and slenderness. The 2 top floors integrate cohesively with the rest of the building through cladding that is consistent with the quality of the entire building. They provide visual differentiation through the increased use of wraparound balconies clad in transparent glazing, which lightens the tower top volume and provides an interesting termination to the continuous vertical articulation of the tower's midsection. The mechanical penthouse is integral with the mid and top components of the tower. It is an element that organically ties the entire design and becomes a feature that identifies the building from afar. Thank you.
The tower height of 27 stories is similar in height and massing to other high-rises in the area, which includes the 43-story landmark place to the north and the 25-story newly constructed building at the corner of Main and Walnut. The properties directly to the east include a mix of office and residential uses in 2 to 3-story buildings, and the proposed massing responds to this context through a transition in height towards the east with the tower setback of 12.5 meters from the eastern property line to levels 12 through 27. The tower is stepped back between 1.6 and 4.5 meters above the building base to the north, south, and west. The floor plate size, as shown on this slide here, for levels 12 to 25 is approximately 866 square meters, with the floor plate being reduced to 762 on the top 2 square meters. Although slightly above the recommended 750 square meter floor plate, given that the balconies are not included in this area calculation, a 750 square meter floor plate plus balconies was assessed by the project team and would result in only minor changes to the shadows and the visual impact of the building. Related to indoor and outdoor amenity spaces, a communal rooftop patio is proposed on the 5th story along the eastern portion of the building to mitigate overlook and privacy concerns to the east. Privacy screening and or railing setbacks or just setbacks in general will be implemented through the detailed design phase of development. Also, indoor bike parking is proposed in accordance with the zoning bylaw and in addition to bike parking near the building entrances for short-term use for the residential and commercial uses. The indoor amenity space has been designed to accommodate a variety of uses, including indoor workout facility and party room. Thank you. That concludes our presentation, and we are happy to move to the panel's clarification questions.
Thank you, Ashley and Brad. So I'll turn it over to Joey to see if he has any questions for your team.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I have a few questions. Your heritage consultant's cultural heritage impact assessment recommended that the new podium reference the adjacent existing 2.5-story building heights. Was there a reason you weren't able to meet these heights? I'm noticing that it's significantly taller than the adjacent buildings.
I think that Paul, is that Paul Michael? Is that a question? I will say the in the
Is
zoning
Chris
bylaw.
here? You'd mentioned Chris was here earlier. Is he here?
Yes, I think so. I
Okay.
think, or
Actually,
Nicholas.
Chris isn't here. I'm here on behalf of Chris.
Okay. I don't know if
Nicholas, did
maybe-
you want to clarify that recommendation, or
I don't
terms of-
suppose I need to clarify that. I think that was a point made that the podium height, this is just in line with the transition from the 27-story building to the adjacent east and west fabric that is around 2.5 stories. So that was a comment made for consideration by the planning team.
And I will say, in response to the zoning bylaw does speak to a 16-meter high building facade along Hunter Street East. It matches that building facade height that's within the planned context of Hunter Street.
Do you have any other questions, Joey?
I missed most of them. So the podium is in line with.
Not sure we're catching your question here, Joey. It looks like you've lost connectivity.
Yeah, David, I think he has lost, so maybe move on to the next and we can go
Yeah.
back to him. That would be great.
Oh, he's back. Joey, did you have another question?
Oh, am I back?
Let's go to Jennifer.
Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you, Daniel, Ashley, and Radek for your presentations. I had a couple of questions. So one, I was wondering what influenced the decision to not show the figures from the shadow studies in the documents that you sent to the DRP?
Were they not included in the latter portion of the document sent?
I didn't see them, so I may have just missed them if they're in there.
Let's have a look. In study, shadow study.
Yeah, I think that they are on page 25, Jennifer, and on.
Oh, okay, thanks. I just missed them then. So my next question was, what drove the decision of having the parking above grade?
Paul and Michael, I will leave that that question to you in terms of the decision to.
Yeah, Paul Kemper here. This is for all of the buildings that we've built in Hamilton. This has been the design that we've used typically. I would say that if from an efficiency perspective and a design perspective, we've been able to balance in a way to move forward that is supportive of both the city's needs and the ability to develop in the community. I think I referenced previously the design elements that we use, and Radek did as well. We're using shadow box treatments with semi-opaque characteristics that allow light still to transfer through and have the character and feel of active use space, even with parking in behind it. We've used these treatments on the building at 15 Queen Street that's under construction right now, and a lot of the glass elements are on that structure. So it has a slightly reflective characteristic combined with the shadow box and the semi-opaque characteristics to allow for the creation of what looks like active use space all around the building.
Thank you. Maybe I can rephrase that. What caused you to not consider parking below grade, more parking below grade? I believe you show 1 below grade currently.
Yeah. The original building that we designed in Hamilton, we ran into some environmental constraints. And the challenge with Hamilton, the entire downtown core is contaminated when you go further down into the ground. It's part of it's identified in our record of site condition on all of the projects. At our Queen Street site, we identified that. And for that reason, along with other soil condition reasons, it was identified that we weren't able to go down further. So we've applied that same design across all of our sites.
Thank you. One final question. How many of your parking spaces are provided at grade, the short-term at-grade bike parking spaces? I think I saw 5 on the plan, but I thought from Daniel's presentation, it sounded like 10 to 15 were required potentially.
There is 2 locations.
For the bike parking, we would meet the requirements. So I'm not sure what it is. The intention is.
Yeah. Our intent is to meet the requirement of the city as it relates to on-grade bike parking. So if something's not reflected on that plan, we'll certainly make sure that that is the case at the site plan stage.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana.
Hi, could you confirm that the complete levels 2 and 3 in the podium are all allocated to parking?
Yes, 2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4. Okay, thank you. That concludes my questions.
Jana.
Thank you. My questions were answered.
Hoda.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. And I have a question about the bike storage on ground level. Just wondering, is this the bike storage for the residents, and is there any access from inside the building? Because I see the door that it's outside. I was just wondering if the residents could have access from inside, or do they need to go out to get access to that?
I believe, I don't think the parking levels floor plans were shown, but there are the secure bike parking on each level of the parking. Radek, I don't know if you wanted, or Paul or Michael, to talk about that one specific one on the ground floor. It does look like there is a door to the exterior. I do believe that is counted as the long-term secure bike parking.
Yeah.
But will that be accessed via like a key card access for?
Yes, that's correct. Be a secured room that would only be available with access to the residents of the building. And that's how it's currently envisioned. But I would say that as it relates to some of that configuration on the ground floor, just being at the current stage that we're at right now, there is flexibility to look at different ways for that room to where it precisely fit and how it would interact with the layout of the building. But what we did want to do is make sure that we're being representative of the idea that bike storage would be on the ground floor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Another question is about I don't see any landscape plans, so probably it's not ready, but in the renders, I don't see much trees, street trees. There is only one at Hunter Street. I'm just wondering if it's not developed, or if there is any plan to have it more street trees along all sides of the street. I mean, the Hunter and Catherine Street.
I'm not sure specifically about street trees. I know that it is the intention to put decorative paving and planters and surface treatment. Michael, I'm not sure if you wanted to answer that question about the viability of street trees here, or whether that's deferred to a landscape architect later on in the process.
Usually we get into some of those details a little bit later, but as there is space on the municipal right of way, we think where there is space, we're open to the idea of incorporating any street trees that the city might feel is appropriate. Okay. And that's usually something that we deal with specifically, I guess, with the city at the site plan stage.
Okay, thank you.
Elvin?
Thanks for the presentation. I have no questions at this time.
Guess it's my turn. I have A question maybe for the city officials here. When you have two streets with different facade requirements intersect at a corner like this, how is the bylaw to be interpreted?
Yeah, so the bylaw basically requires you to have the building base facade height reflecting on each side, that's required for each side of the street. So basically the building base facade height on Catherine, based on the current zoning, would require to be at 7.5 meters. And then the building base facade height at the on Hunter would have to be at 16 meters.
Right, and so what happens right at the corner?
Because there are maximums, you can have I guess you can have this building base facade height at a lower level at the corner, basically.
Right, so what you're saying is that the lower
of the two would apply.
level governs.
At that particular point, yes.
Okay.
Unless you get a modification of the bylaw.
Right. But that's how the bylaw's meant to be interpreted. Okay. A question about the actual conditions of this site regarding the soil contamination. You presented the strategy as something that you developed for another site where the condition was contaminated, and that you're now rolling that out across, I guess, more than one site, just as a strategy. And I'm wondering if you have knowledge that that is specific to this site.
David, sorry, David. The observation is that we are aware that all of the sites, all of the downtown core, just through going through the record of site condition process with our consultant, the entire downtown core does have concerns as it relates to vinyl chlorides down lower in the soil. So we will run into that condition on this site as well.
So is it the case that nobody has gone below one-story parking in downtown with parking garage?
Don't know what the result is. I know that there's a number of other buildings that have been built similar to this. I would say that that's probably not the case. I'm sure that I don't think that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what everyone else has done. Not aware of it.
Maybe somebody from the city can elaborate on whether this is a circumstance that is consistent across all projects that are being developed within the downtown core.
There are other examples of developments that have gone below 1 story in terms of development. The one I can think of off the top of my head is the Kresge development at the corner of King and Houston. Houston went down, I believe 4 stories.
Right. Maybe you probably mentioned this in your document, and I didn't. What is the building material on the outside?
It will be a combination on the podium of precast concrete, brick panels, and glass. Let me just double check here. Yeah, clear glass, precast and precast brick panels, as well as for the tower.
Yeah, I don't think one. I think I just couldn't hear the answer.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. No. I heard your answer. An earlier question. Sorry. I captured the materials you described, but there was a clarification about the bike parking. Is it all on the ground floor, or were you saying that some of the parking is on other levels up through the parking garage or down? I'm not sure if I misheard that.
Yes, I do believe there are some spaces on the other parking levels.
Are we talking about bicycles or motorcycles?
Bicycles.
Bicycles on upper levels in the parking garage. Okay.
I can jump in just for a second. Yeah, we did talk about the bicycle parking spaces that are available on the ground floor. And in addition to that, there are other areas within the parking structure, both above and below, which would have opportunities, space to add additional, that we've already envisioned to have for bicycle parking. So the total amount of bicycle parking that we've referenced includes parking within the podium and on the ground floor.
Okay. I think that's all the questions. So I'll turn it over to the panel for feedback and recommendations. So the first person I'll turn to is Joey.
Thank you. Sorry about earlier. Seem to be having trouble with my connection. I'm hoping I can maybe tie in my comments with also the questions that I had asked. I had some other ones as well. Just wondering why the new podium it cannot reference the 2.5-story building heights, which is the existing heights in the area next to the building.
Yeah, and we had just referenced the zoning bylaw building facade height that is contemplated for the Hunter Street corridor is 16 meters, which
Right.
is what is proposed. There was a question, I'm not sure if you caught that question about David's point of clarification about if there's two competing facade heights, which prevails at the corner, and that would be the lower one.
So is the lower one the 7.5 meters? Or the
yes,
6?
the lower, yes.
Okay. So does the new podium references the 7.5 meters?
No, the new podium is approximately 16 meters.
Oh, okay. So did Daniel state that if there are two competing heights that the proposal should align with the lower one?
To clarify, the question was about whether at the very right at the corner, what would be the requirement basically, and the answer was the lower one. But for the rest of Hunter along Hunter Street, it could stay at 16 meters without any modification to the bylaw. Whereas at the corner and then along Catherine Street would have to be 7.5 meters to conform to the current requirement of the bylaw.
Okay. So is it currently complying?
Along Catherine Street, no. It's showing us also being 16 meters, is my understanding.
Okay. Also, just going back, so the Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment also recommended reuse of existing heritage elements from the building that's going to be demolished, for example, the stained glass. Will these form part of the design in some way, or a commemoration piece on the site or in the building?
That would be a question for Michael and Paul. I think the intention is to keep those pieces, but I don't want to speak.
Hi, it's Michael. Yeah, we did find that glass is a very interesting architectural element, and although we don't have a specific location just yet, we do intend to incorporate it into the development.
You do intend to?
Yes, we do, Joey.
Okay. So I just going back to the discussion about the issues with the site and the contamination. Has there been a report undertaken that looks at this site specifically? I can appreciate that Colaterra does a significant amount of work in the downtown, and they are taking sort of their experience from previous developments. But in this particular case, has a study been done, and has it been confirmed that the site is contaminated?
No, at this time we have not done the environmental reports for the site.
Okay, let's assume a report was undertaken and it was found that the site was contaminated, similar to other projects. What are the real obstacles in remediating parts of the site to to potentially place all of the underground parking below grade? Cost. So we're just talking about money here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So in many ways, I mean, when we had reviewed this as a panel together, we had realized that the approach to this building is very similar to the Main and George project that we had reviewed not too long ago. And we're going to assume that we're going to see this group in the years to come, and that this is a formula that this team follows for every site. So I think my main comment, and my colleagues will articulate this more, I'm sure, is that maybe this formula needs to be adjusted or rethought and considered for each particular site, considering the context, podium height, massing of building, because Hamilton is not the same everywhere. Even downtown Hamilton has its unique qualities and characteristics. And I think we had a very good discussion with you on the qualities, the heritage qualities, and also the social kind of qualities of Hess Village, and how your proposal, although very important to bring residential to the area, also had to kind of respond to those historic and social qualities of Hess Village. In the same way, I think those comments pertain here. Even though there's a little bit less context, there are still quite a few qualities and characteristics that this project can align with. And my suggestion is that it does.
Is that that's
yeah,
Jennifer's turn?
Yeah.
Okay, Jennifer.
Thank you. So again, thank you for your presentations and for putting together this package for us. I wanted to say the emphasis on the walkability and the cycling in the area with the proximity to the GO station, it really speaks to the importance of the ground level experience here. And you've shown active retail uses at grade and ample glazing for these, which is great. However, the parking garage on Hunter takes up about half of the ground floor level on that frontage. And it takes up most of the alleyways as well, which results in a lot of inactive walls. Understanding that there may be issues with contamination on site, I'd still like to see consideration for pushing all of this parking underground to achieve more units above grade while still respecting the required setbacks and enlivening that street level. In general, parking shouldn't be at grade. We could also consider, and I would consider reducing parking as an option given the proximity with the GO station. I really also appreciate the concepts you've shown for the urban braille. I think that'll be great in assisting in wayfinding and placemaking. I like the concepts you've shown for the planters, the bike racks on the ground floor plane, but also note that there isn't a lot of space dedicated to the pedestrian realm. I'd really like to see these elements carried forward and more space identified for active transportation and pedestrian amenities. The amenity space design concept that you've shown above the podium is also a great feature. I appreciate the emphasis you've given there on active transportation and physical activity. And in terms of the building form, the 4-story podium is about 2 stories taller than any of the adjacent property podiums, and it's 1 story higher than the recommendation in the tall building guidelines. I'd really like to see this podium reduced to match the existing street wall and reflect the zoning bylaw 7.5 maximum height. I think the step backs as well from the podium along the Hunter and Catherine Street frontages really aren't enough to create a distinct separation of the tower, and the floor plate of the tower really exceeds the recommendations in the tall buildings guideline. It's much wider than really we'd like to see. Reducing that floor plate and increasing the step backs is going to help it read as a true tower. And the building is also too close and not really stepped back enough from the adjacent development. Again, increasing those step backs and a smaller floor plate will really help to alleviate this. Overall, I think you've put together a really good concept for increasing density and encouraging active transportation in what's a mobility hub area. So good job and thank you.
Dana.
David, Dana appears to be having internet problems, so maybe we'll come back to her.
Okay. Jana?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I agree with my colleagues. What surprises me personally is that the proposal is more than twice as tall as the city envisions in this area, and the podium is also more than twice as tall. The setbacks are significantly reduced, the floor plates are larger, and so far I don't see any justification for that. How is this proposal in compliance or meeting the city's vision? And what is it offering to the community and the neighborhood? There doesn't seem to be much regarding to the existing context other than intensifying lines in proximity to the GO station. So in my opinion, the integration and transition are insufficient and the massing should be decreased significantly, at least regarding the floor plates. I would strongly recommend to eliminate those 11-story wing elements on the east side. The massing is just too extensive for the existing street proportions. I strongly agree with Joey. The podium should be redesigned. The 4-story above ground parking structure is not a use which creates appropriate relationship with the street. Just 1 story underground and 4 above. I know you've mentioned environmental issues there, which might be there, or I'm not sure if they are, but you've mentioned they are there, and that that's really concerning because if the whole Hamilton's downtown will be designed with no clearing of the contaminated soil, but rather creating 4-story parking structures, I really don't think that would create the active streets which the city is looking for. So you really should propose more underground levels or reduce the height. And if above ground parking keeps to be proposed, it really should be lined with different uses, at least along the public street frontages. And maybe, as Jen suggested, there is a potential at this site to reduce the parking ratios even more, as it is very close to the GO station. Other than that, I like the simplicity of the design, but I still think the massing is overwhelmingly extensive for this site. Thank you.
Hey, we can go back to Dana. Are you connected? Okay, Hoda.
Thank you, David, and thank you again for all the design and the effort that you put. I totally agree that it's nice to have a high-rise building. I don't have an issue with the height of the building, but I just echoed my colleagues about the height of the podium and the need of the increase the setback of the building to create more pedestrian-friendly sidewalks. Especially at Hunter Street, it needs to have more active walls at the instead of the solid wall of the parking level, especially because other side of the street there is a wall that because of the GO train raised railways. So I again echo my colleagues to find a solution for the raised parking lot. That's it. Thank you from me.
Eldon?
Thanks, David, and thanks to the team for your presentation. To be honest with you, I'm not significantly fussed about the height. I appreciate the fact that the site is located adjacent to major transit station, so there's that opportunity and you're taking advantage of that. So there's recognition of that opportunity, and I do appreciate the ground floor animation that you're proposing as it relates to both Catherine and Hunter. But I do share my colleagues' concerns as it relates to the above-grade parking and particularly the tower, the extension of the tower at the lower levels at the back end, which is really struggling the slenderness of that form. I think if there's opportunities to, as mentioned by some other colleagues, to either reduce the required parking or perhaps find a balance with an additional level of underground that helps to bring down that podium or utilize that podium for more residential purposes, or adding a skin along those facing edges that give greater animation, I think you would result in a better urbanism within this location as it relates to the public streets. And I do share the concerns as it relates to the northerly setback along the lane, and just thinking about the potential for that property to redevelop in the future, which can happen. They now have a new starting point as it relates to overlook and privacy. So just being sensitive to recognizing there's a blank wall there, but being sensitive to the fact that that may not be there long term, and ensuring that your site doesn't compromise future development potentials in those locations. Those are my comments. Great presentation. Thank you for laying out your proposal.
I guess I'll ask Dana one last time if she's connected. But otherwise, I'll go on to my own comments, which.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great.
Sorry for the internet connection issues, and thank you to the applicant team for your presentation. I think what was really noted is that this is an area that's going to experience a lot of transition and redevelopment over the coming years, and I really commend you on an application that really focuses on the ground floor and the pedestrian environment. But my main concern is around the tall building offsite setbacks and ensuring that this development won't limit any potential future development offsite. Considering you are going to see a lot of redevelopment in this area, and I think we want to make sure that what can be the density and development that can be provided on the site will not have any adverse impacts offsite in the future. And I think one way of meeting those setbacks and meeting the tall building guidelines a little bit better would be to focus on a smaller floor plate and really pushing the building away from the laneway and the adjacent properties as well. Like my colleagues had said, I do think that an active podium is important, not just on the ground floor, but on the upper stories. So focusing maybe away from parking towards office use or other types of uses would be important. The ground floor on Hunter Street that has the parking adjacent to it, perhaps that could be converted into another retail space or a community space that's not just a parking garage. I do have some concerns with the reflective glazing on the podium. While that can screen parking garage, it's not necessarily a bird-friendly element. Can attract a lot of bird fatalities, specifically at that lower 4-meter or podium level. So I guess just from my perspective, I would look at other treatments for the podium, and particularly maybe considering adding color or something that would be kind of more unique and really would activate the ground floor. And lastly, I do like the addition of the outdoor amenity spaces on the development as part of this development on the podium, and just to consider the wind study and the shadow study as it relates to these spaces to ensure they're comfortable for residents. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Thanks, Dana. So I'm not sure I have anything new to add. I think it's pretty universal, some concerns about the scale of the podium. I think that the Heritage report identifying the height of 2.5 stories as, in essence, the remnant of the existing historic fabric of the neighborhood, and that as we are transitioning through one neighbor to, one type of development throughout the community to a much more dense one, there will continue to be pockets of the remnant heritage condition, like to the east of this site. And I think that the ideal podium scenario would be to respect that and grow and essentially maintain that memory. I think that the 7.5 meter setback on Catherine would seem also to essentially dictate, which seems to be about the right height to make that work. So, and for all of those reasons, I think that podium height is the right height for the site. In spite of the fact that specifically along Hunter, you could go higher there, I think that given some of these other contextual issues, I think it's much more appropriate to go with the 2.5 story. I echo all of the comments about the importance of the grade level. In fact, the orientation of this size of development and the amount of population it brings, how important the streetscape is to that development. and therefore the liveliness of it. And certainly the liveliness of the streetscape, a lot of the things you're doing are going to contribute to that. But I think that the natural character of the upper level floors has a role to contribute to that. And so I echo all of the comments about how that should be really another use than parking ideally. And I think in general, I echo what Joey was talking about in terms of your strategy going forward with other projects and maybe more fulsome exploration of the possibility of going for a different solution here. I think that this would be a very unfortunate typology to continue to develop throughout downtown Hamilton. In terms of that massing, I also agree with Jana's position that I don't know that you're offering that much back to the city in terms of earning relaxation of all of these setback requirements and whatnot. And certainly I don't see how you can expect that a neighbor would absorb your setback shortfall. I don't understand how that's a credible urban strategy or proposal strategy. In terms of the detailed design, I'm kind of disappointed. I have to say I find the actual solution not, I'm not convinced in the description of the qualities of the tower top. Yeah, I'm finding it the difference between the tower itself and the tower articulation is very subtle and not particularly engaging as a building within the city. And I think that the sort of saddlebag development on the east side that's meant to transition down to the neighborhood is not integrated into the tower in a convincing way. It really looks like something that's stuck on to just to capture some more density. But I do agree that this is the right type of project for this site, that density is appropriate in this location, so close to the transit station. And so, I mean, there's no question there is a project here. I just would like to think you can do better. I don't know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, I think we can adjourn.
Yeah, if there's no other questions, I think we can finish up. I'll follow up with the formal written summary in 3 weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.